Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
How I want to do this is obviously on Friday when Matt was here, he went all through Fuanga, the number one pick at 14. Taliesin Fuanga, the offensive tackle, who's going to fill one of your spots, whether it's right tackle in place of Ryan Ramczyk or left tackle in place of Trevor Penning, James Hurst, you pick. He's going to fill one of those. We went through that extensively then. So I want to pick it up in the second round with KoolAid McKinstry and then go through, Rattler and Means and Ford and Boyd and the offensive tackle they took in the seventh round and kind of give you a brief thumbnail there. So that's where we'll start. So look, the Saints in round number 2, they were set to go at 45. You know the Saints have to check a box, right? They have to trade up at least once in a draft, and it came right there. They moved up 4 spots, I should say, to number 41. Everyone, I think, at that point thought, okay, maybe there's an offensive tackle they like. Maybe this is the wide receiver that they covet, because you saw that mock to them plenty. It was offensive tackle at 14, receiver in the second round. But no, it was KoolAid McKinstry, cornerback out of Alabama. Maybe that was a little bit surprising for a couple reasons. One that we just said, it wasn't what they were really mocked to. It wasn't where a lot of the thinking was. And not only that, McKinstry's coming off a bit of an injury with the foot at Alabama. But when you look at the pick, he fits exactly what the Saints want. He's a long cornerback, great in press man coverage. The Saints played the 7th most press man in the NFL last season. It's what they do under Dennis Allen. So he fits that. He's a boundary guy. I think it is fair to ask what this might mean for Marshon Lattimore. I know what Mickey Loomis said, obviously, at his pre-draft press conference. It was Mike Triplett that asked the question, will Marshon Lattimore, do you feel comfortable that Marshon Lattimore will be on the roster? And Mickey Loomis said yes. Then the follow-up was asked, and he admitted to avoiding that question, but also said, I don't like trading contributors. So we'll see. But you look at the depth chart there. I mean, you all obviously have Paulson Adebo also on the outside. You have Alontae Taylor in the slot, Marshon Lattimore, now KoolAid McKinstry. The fit is good. So for that reason, I like the pick at 41 of KoolAid McKinstry. What was surprising, thank you. See, I forgot about that. You didn't. Good job, Alondra. What was surprising is that the Saints didn't trade up from that 5th round spot. They had 4 5s. They traded one of them to move up to 41. They never traded back into round 4 or round 3. And when they got to pick 150, they drafted Spencer Rattler, quarterback out of South Carolina. And this could prove to be one of the best value picks the Saints have. I mean, Spencer Rattler, if you think about what he was to what he became, what he was after his sophomore year at Oklahoma, and then after the time at South Carolina, it's a pretty winding journey. But ultimately, you look at a guy like Spencer Rattler, who after his sophomore year at Oklahoma was projected to be the number 1 overall pick. Like, he was going to be that guy, slam dunk, 1-1, franchise quarterback, all of that. Year 3 at Oklahoma, his draft year, does not go well. He enters the transfer portal, ends up with Shane Beamer at South Carolina, and reinvents himself in the Garnet and Black over there in Columbia. Played more snaps in the 2 seasons at South Carolina than he did in his 3 seasons at Oklahoma. Set a career high in passing yards in his final year in school. Really burst onto the scene in 2022 in that Tennessee game where he threw for over 400, had the 6 touchdowns. Like, he's extremely accurate. He's got great arm strength. Everything you want in a quarterback, Spencer Rattler has. It's just been a really interesting journey. But because of the physical tools, I don't know how you can do anything but like that pick, especially getting him in the 5th round, when at one point he was thought to be a slam dunk 1-1 guy. So I love the pick of Spencer Rattler. It's interesting. Look, the Saints have 5 quarterbacks now. They're obviously not going to carry 5 quarterbacks into camp. Kellen Mond's not going to make this roster. I think you really look at Haener, Peterman, and Rattler battling for that position. One of them's going to get the backup spot. The other one probably going to go to practice squad and or be the 3rd quarterback that the Saints carry. They've carried 3 before. Maybe they do that again. But looking at it, physical tools-wise and whatnot, I don't know how you look at Spencer Rattler coming in and what the Saints have currently on the roster and don't say, he's the favorite right now to win the backup quarterback job behind Derek Carr. So I loved the pick of Spencer Rattler in the 5th round at 150. Then you go to pick 170 in the 5th round, and that's where the Saints addressed wide receiver. And I think it's real easy to look at it and go, man, you had a lot of people mocking them to take receiver in 2nd round. It looked like it was a big need. We've spent a lot of this offseason talking about the depth at receiver. Like, I mean, they brought in Equanimous St. Brown. They brought in Cedric Wilson. Like, they were trying to build numbers back up there, and there were a lot of great receivers you could have seen them take early in the draft. They didn't, and they took what looks like a really good receiver in the middle of the draft. Bubba Mim, this pick has gotten a lot of fanfare just from around NFL circles. And it's easy to see why when you look at him. Bubba Mim is not going to come in for the Saints and be a day one, just plug and play guy. Go, you're right there with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. That's not him. But he has the potential to develop into a really nice player. Great size, 6'1", 212, can stretch the field, maybe needs a little bit more improvement on his routes, but he's got good length, he's got a catch radius, and the size lends him to be a possession guy. Add in the speed you like he could develop into a premier wide receiver if given enough time. He'll get a shot with the New Orleans Saints, like the pick of Bubba Mim there at 170 in the 5th round. The Saints would make 3 more picks. The next one would be 5 picks later at 175. That would be Jaylen Ford, the linebacker out of Texas. When you look at him from a statistical standpoint, there's plenty to like. He was Texas's leading tackler the last 2 years. He was first team all Big 12 the last 2 years. Was a 3rd team All-American by the Associated Press in 2022. Like, all of that sounds great. But the grades on him, not the best. There's a lot of question marks, in a sense, with him. Can he actually play all 3 downs? Is the physicality good enough? Is the anticipation good enough to play inside linebacker at the next level? For what the Saints have right now, he fits. I don't think he's a long-term solution for the New Orleans Saints. Can he serve as a quality backup for Demario Davis right now in the twilight of Demario's career? Sure. But when Demario's hangs it up, is he the future? Probably not. But maybe. You just wait and see. But I'm going to say probably not. So the Saints might be back in that market in the draft very soon. But for right now, for this team, sure. Jaylen Ford can do the job, no problem. The next pick came out in the 6th round, 199. That was defensive tackle Christian Boyd out of Northern Iowa. Saints love them some Northern Iowa here as of late. And I'll be honest, it's not necessarily Christian Boyd that's disappointing to me. I just wanted the Saints to address defensive tackle earlier in the draft. The Saints, from a run defense standpoint, have been dreadful to their standards the last 2 years. And I think it's really obviously hurting their defense as a whole. Like when the Saints had the dominant defenses that they had under Dennis Allen when Sean Payton was the head coach, it was built off of stuffing the run. They never allowed a 100-yard rusher. It was just forced offenses to be one-dimensional, and they've gotten away from that. Taking a defensive tackle in the 6th round from a small school probably isn't going to be the answer to fixing that. Maybe they can address that more in free agency. I don't know. But when you look at Boyd in general, he's well built. He's huge. He's like 6'2", 321. He did show an ability to increase his pass rush in his last season at Northern Iowa. He was a FCS All-American. But what you always talk about with a guy coming in from a small school is the step up in competition. The Saints have loved drafting small school guys, but the step up in competition is always a question, and it's always a fair question, and you have to ask that now with Boyd. Why did it take him so long to build that up, to show that increase in pass rush production or run stuff production at a lower level? How long would it take him to do that at the NFL level? So I looked at defensive tackle as a much bigger need than the New Orleans Saints obviously did. They went with Christian Boyd. It's not a bad pick. It's just one that I would have wished they addressed earlier in the draft. We'll see how he does in camp and if he can make the roster spot, grab a roster spot, excuse me. And then finally, round 7, the last pick they made, thank you, Josiah Ezra, offensive tackle, Eastern Kentucky. This feels very Landon Young to me. I mean, just if I'm going to be quite honest, the Saints are not done on the offensive line. But Ezra is a project. Like, he just is. He played his first 2 years of college football on the defensive line as a reserve defensive lineman at Eastern Kentucky to that. And it was 2019, 2020. He's more on the older side. So he's inexperienced there at offensive tackle. I shouldn't say inexperienced. He's green. Let's just say that. Because, I mean, he did play his final 3 of 5 years at that spot. It was right tackle. He was a FCS All-American. All of those things, great. Very agile guy. The athleticism is honestly what stands out the most with him. The production, maybe not so much. But to prove the point of the athleticism and why you take a flyer on a guy like this in the 7th round, at the Combine, he was ranked the 11th best offensive tackle out of all of them there in athleticism. So he definitely has that going for him. Great size, 6'6", over 300 pounds. But not a guy he's not the answer to help fix your offensive line right now. At least I don't think with how green he is. It's going to take some time to build him up. And being drafted in the 7th round, there's no guarantee that he makes the team. So the Saints clearly still have a hole on the offensive line that they need to address, or we should say holes. Overall, when I look at the Saints draft, I like it this year. I really do. I mean, we went through it, and I mean, more than half the picks are really good. You love the Fuanga pick. I like KoolAid McKinstry. I think he fits exactly what they want to do. I think Spencer Rattler is the favorite to win the backup quarterback job now, and maybe, depending on how that goes and how he develops in the system, could be the future. Maybe. I'm not saying he is, but could be, maybe. And then Bubba Mim feels like a steal. And Jaylen Ford fits in a backup role right now. So overall, really good. The Saints address needs. They got guys who fit their scheme. Let's see how it plays out. Of course, this time of the year, everybody loves every draft pick, right? Now you get into rookie mini camp and then training camp, preseason, and the season will be here before you know it. But if I had to put a grade on it, B- for the New Orleans Saints. Not bad. We'll take it. You move on. Go further, I should say, into 2024.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.